Hi everyone, Brad Drew here. I wanted to share with you some of what I'm doing to process my infrared images that I'm taking on the iPhone using Lightroom Mobile, the Lightroom app for the iPhone. We've been having just a blast making infrared images with our phone since midsummer is when I started working on this, and had a lot of help from Gary Litwin out west and from DeWitt Jones and Jack Davis. We started a group on Facebook. If you Google Open Group Infrared on the iPhone, you'll find that group, and you can join it. There's no prerequisite or anything. You just click the join button and you'll automatically be added to that group. And it's just a place where we can share what we're all creating and then share information about how we're doing it. So what I wanted to show you today, I had a great day out shooting yesterday. I found a stream in the woods with mossy rocks and waterfalls and so on. It was perfect for infrared. And so I went out with my tripod, and let me show you the image that I started working on here. It's this one right here, and this is the image right out of the camera, and I used the Lightroom Pro Camera, which is part of the Lightroom for Mobile app, and I used the professional mode, which allowed me to set my ISO and my shutter speed and so on. If we look at the metadata for this particular image, I'll go ahead and tap the share icon down here at the bottom, and I'm going to use this tool, View EXIF. If you don't have this, this is a really good tool for getting the metadata on images that you select from your camera roll. So I'm going to tap on View EXIF, and it takes a minute to come up, but once it does, it gives you all this metadata about your image. So you can see here it's a DNG file, you can see the dimensions and so on, and then down here you can see that I set it to 160 ISO, f1.8, and a 1 second exposure, which, by the way, a 1 second exposure is the maximum you can set for using the Pro camera in Lightroom. You can take up to 5-second long exposure if you use the long exposure mode in the camera. But I did not do that for this image. I used the Pro mode. So anyway, once I have the image, the next thing I want to do is process it. And the best processor I have found for a RAW or a DNG file, which this one is Lightroom. And that's, by the way, one of the reasons I like using Lightroom is that it lets me create a DNG file. So I'm going to go to Lightroom, and I'm going to back out here. There's the image, but I'm going to go first over here and reset all of my adjustments so you can see it. There it is, right there. I'm going to tap it, and there's what the image looks like right out of the camera, and I'm now in the Lightroom editor. You can see at the top I have my histogram displayed, which you can find up in your settings and set that so you can see it. The first thing I'm going to do, it's just about a 6-step process. I'm going to start by tapping auto, and you can see that one auto adjustment really changed the exposure of the image, brightened things up. If we undo that, you can see the histogram. Let me back up. There's the histogram. You can see everything shoved up into the dark area on the left. But once I tap auto, it makes an auto adjustment and really improves that exposure. The next thing I'm going to do is go to color. And in color, all I'm going to do is tap that black and white button up at the top there, or right beneath the image. And when I do, it converts the image to a black and white. Now, I could play with other things here, but I don't usually do any adjustments for temperature or tint. What I'm going to do next is go to Effects, and here I'm going to adjust my texture up to 50 or 60%, and you can zoom in and watch what's happening. I really want the texture in those rocks, and I'm going to add a little clarity. It's looking better, and then I'm going to add a little bit of dehaze, and watch how the dehaze is going to give the image a little bit of a darker tone. And then the last thing I could do is come down and give it a slight vignette. So now there is our image, and it's getting to look pretty good. The next thing I'm going to do after Effects is go to Details, and this is where I'll do sharpening. I'm going to bring the sharpening slider almost to 100%. I'm going to bring the radius up to 100. drop the details to 0 and masking up close to 100. And again, you can zoom in on your image while you're making these adjustments, and make sure that they're doing well. Now, the other thing that you can do here, if I zoom in on this water, the soft part of the water, you can see the noise that we've got in there. Now, there's of course, noise throughout the image, but mostly where it's distracting is in this area that's supposed to be soft, smooth water. One of the tools that you have at your disposal here in the detail menu is noise reduction. So I will zoom in on this area here, and I'm going to take my noise reduction way up. There's about 65%. Just for the heck of it, I'm going to take it all the way up to 100% and look at the image. So if we look at all these soft areas, you can see it really did smooth out the water. And I'm going to leave it at that. I'm going to leave it at 100%. We might just also want to tweak the contrast just a little bit, but usually I don't bother with that. So now here's our image. Here's where we started with it in magenta and everything, and now here's where we are with it now. So that's the next thing I'm going to do is go down to optics, and I'm going to turn the optics, remove chromatic aberration and enable lens correction. And I do that as a matter of habit with all of my processing in Lightroom, because if I am using the ultra wide angle lens on the 11 Pro, or if I have any moment lenses attached or something like that, it doesn't hurt to have these things turned on. The next thing I'm going to do is go over here to light, and I've already done an auto adjustment for my exposure values, but here's where I might come and tweak things. Now, one of the things I like to do is use the histogram, and I've been having issues with it this morning. I don't know why it's not functioning properly. If I back out of this and reselect it, there it appears. So it's not functioning the way it should, but if yours shouldn't have a problem, I'm probably going to need to reboot my phone or something. But the histogram can be helpful as you make these light adjustments. So what I want to do is get my blacks as black as they can be without being completely crushed, and my highlights really bright without being blown out. I like that. For me, I like that kind of contrast in my infrared. So what I might do is go down and I might drop my shadows a little bit, and I might bring up my highlights. Now again, notice how the histograms quit working, but the image is responding. So that's what I care about. I'm watching my brights here and just making sure I don't blow anything out, and then I like to drop my blacks a little bit. So now there's our image. It's looking pretty darn good. I'm going to go ahead and save this to the camera roll. So I'm going to tap on the share icon right here, and then down below I'm going to choose export to camera roll. Now I have this set to save the image to my camera roll as a JPEG. I no longer need the DNG. I've already extracted the goodness from the file. Now I've saved this image to my camera roll already processed from Lightroom. So let's go take a look at it. Here it is, and it looks pretty good. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to take it into Snapseed and do some final tweaking. So I'm going to hold my finger down on the image in the camera roll and choose copy, and then I'm going to swipe down here and find my Snapseed icon, hold my finger on that and choose paste image, and it's telling me that I already have an image in there, but I'm going to say that's okay, open the new one. So there is our image in Snapseed, and what I'm going to do is open my tools and go to Tune Image up here, and I'm going to start by going to Ambiance, and I'm just going to play with the ambiance a little bit and watch what happens to the image. So I'm going to brighten it, the overall image, up just a little bit. Then I'm going to go down to my highlights, and I'm going to bring my highlights up. Now you'll notice there is a histogram down below, and I do watch that. I can bring my highlights way up and get my, I'm not blowing anything out yet. I've got these nice whites where the water is and where these leaves are, and I'm at 100% of my highlights now. I'm going to go down here to shadows, and those I'm going to drop into the negative. Now again, I'm watching my histogram down here, and you can see if I go too far, I can really crush my blacks, and you can see the histogram showing us that peak really high there on the left. So I'm going to, whoops, why is it doing that? I'm going to bring my highlights back up a little bit, but still drop them down. So there's before where we started, and there's where we are now. We've got some nice contrast in the image. It still might want to come up just a little bit. There's before, right out of Lightroom, and there's with a little bit of a Snapseed tweak. Now, I'm going to hit the check mark and commit to those changes. And if we look at this, I'm not seeing a lot of noise here. It's looking pretty good. The image overall looks really good. And now what I want to do, I love taking my infrared images and giving them just a hint of a glow. And in Snapseed, I use the tool called Glamour Glow. And I'll go ahead and tap on that right here. And there's Glamour Glow applied to this image at 50% glow. It just defaulted to one of these 5 presets. And if I hold my finger on the screen, there's without the glow, and there's with the glow. Now, that might be an appropriate amount of glow for your image, but I'm going to drop mine down about half. Because you notice the glow does take some of your detail away by softening the image, and it darkens it a little bit. So there's before and there's after with the amount of glow that I want, which is about 50% of what it came in at. I'm going to go ahead and click the check mark, and now I have completed my image. I'm going to tap export and save a copy, and we can go out to our camera roll and take a look at the image. There it is, and it looks pretty darn good. Now what we're finding is that you can achieve this result using everything I just did on the iPhone, but we're also taking these images onto the desktop and using some of the more sophisticated tools there, like Topaz Denoise AI or Sharpen AI, and then even finishing our images off in Silver FX Pro from Nick. I use Luminar 4 as a home base for some of this stuff, but others are using Bridge or Lightroom or Photoshop, and then invoking the sharpening tools and things from Topaz in that way. So you've got lots of options. I love being able to do it just on my phone, but for some higher quality things, I think I often do better when I oops, I just lost my, oh well. Anyway, I do better. Sometimes I get better results when I'm looking at the iPhone. I'm sorry, at the desktop software. Anyway, thanks a lot for listening. I hope this helps you with your processing. And stay tuned, because Jack Davis and I are working on some additional webinars and learning experiences for once we get the 12 in our hands. We're both anticipating its arrival this Friday, and we're going to be working with the 12 and some of the new tools that the 12 Pro Max provides, like the LiDAR sensor, the larger sensor, and a few other bells and whistles that I think are going to enhance our ability to do IR on the phone. So stay tuned for those, and in the meantime, hope you'll join our Facebook group if you haven't already, and see what we're doing there. And in the meantime, keep on creating, and I'll see you next time.